bear with me, guys. I'm going to I have a slideshow. I have a slideshow for you guys. Let me see if that shows up. How that shows up in my. Oh, okay. That seems to show up even with my. Even with my whatever it's called border. So no good gacha. It's just again, I'm just experimenting with certain presentation mediums. So bear if you don't let me know what you think. Give me your honest critique if you think the slideshow is too boring. But no good gacha game. So this is Zenless Zone Zero is coming out to next week. The Chinese decided to put it release date on our holiday, 4th of July, Independence Day. It's Google Slides. It's kind of like PowerPoint. It's free PowerPoint. This is Zenless Zone Zero. So Genshin Impact has reached over $5 billion in U.S. spending. So some stats. Wuthering Waves did $20 million in the first 10 days of release. Blue Archives earned over $167 million in 2023. Insane amounts of money. The thing is, all these games free to play. They don't charge you a single thing to download and start playing them. And all of them rely on a system called gacha, which is a derivative from the term gachapon. This was the Japanese capsule machines. And it's essentially like that. It's like a capsule machine. You gamble and you try to get these premium high-level characters. So this is the issue why I think that there are no good gacha games. As enjoyable as they can be, they're fundamentally flawed. And the first issue is that they are free to play. And free to play, so there was a guy that said, gacha is just a monetization system. And I think that, that's technically true, but it's practically false, utterly false, because they all share similarities. And one is they're free to play. So their model is, when it's free, you're the product. Exactly. So they all share these issues. And then, the first thing with free to play is the game has to be extremely accessible because they rely on getting the biggest audience possible. They need to reach the maximum amount of people they can, which could be good if you don't like exclusives, but it inevitably leads to the fact that they're phone games. I mean, first and foremost, like Azure Lane, Blue Archive, they're exclusively phone games. But even stuff like Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, Zenless Zone Zero, they're all going to be available on the phone, which almost always means that they are really mechanically very shallow. Like you need to be able to successfully beat the game using a phone, using the sort of like on-screen joystick, which is, if anyone's, which is anyone, as anyone knows, it's crap. There's no input, there's no tactile feel to it. It's almost always very, very plain. They got limited controls and mechanics. You got to be able. You don't want to overwhelm the player right away. You want the casual fan to be able to play this. So you cannot, if you're free to play, you cannot go for a niche market with some really refined and challenging mechanics and controls. Azure Lane, Blue Archive, they're auto scrollers where you just sort of you can decide when to use abilities in Blue Archive, and you can kind of position a little bit, but they're not really intense. And to be honest with them, they're also phone games first, and just phone games. So the idea of all right, you play on your phone, you don't necessarily want to give your total attention to your phone while you're walking or riding a bus or in a checkout line. So that's to its credit. You don't necessarily want to be super involved on your phone. Genshin Wuthering Lily, they're also PC games, and they kind of built like a normal game that can be played on a console or a PC, but their combat's always pretty limited by the fact that you cannot ask a lot of the players. You want a very casual player to be able to play the game and be successful. So asking them to have really precise timing, and it to be really tight controls just is too much to ask. So it's going to hurt you financially. And then, the difficulty, like I said, it's early game is always ridiculously easy, like piss easy. Like you could just fall asleep and beat everything because they want you to sort of get into it very gently. And they almost always, like at some point, like, when you're like 10 to 20 hours in the game, they start spiking the difficulty up, and end game itself ends up being extremely, like, to clear the most or the hardest content in it, you have to put in a ton of money with, a ton of characters. So they want to get invested into it. And this is the second thing is the other thing, like the other issue they have with like free to play is limited resources. They specifically limit just how much you can play and how much you can get in the game. So everything has a stamina system. I've never played an FPS on the phone, and I never tried. I've seen people play Call of Duty on the phone. It seems pretty rough, to be honest. They always have a stamina system, which means basically you can only play a certain amount each day, or with like in the case of Genshin Impact and like Wuthering Waves, you can only do certain things a certain amount of times a day. Like there are certain like bosses and domains that give you a certain type of research. Well, the information I'm getting is basically from my own experience. So like the stamina system is basically just there to make sure you can't get all the resources you need to build a character quickly, or like in a week or several days. Like you just can't continually play and build up these characters, because they want you to come back each day. They want you to take like a month to max out your character. So now the limit play is, again, to form habits, so you keep coming back. And of course, they do have they usually have some sort of systems where you can buy extra stamina or extensions. If you like a battle pass or, a season pass, you can usually end up playing more through that. It sort of creates this sort of a natural play sessions where you're like, you maybe play like 15 minutes a day, you do your daily grind and then you get off. It's really weird, just a weird way to play a video game. It's not like, all right, I've got some free time, I want to relax, let me just play the game for a bit. It's always ends up being like, all right, I'm going to go grind my dailies in this game, and then I'm going to grind my dailies in that game, and then I'm just going to stop. And it has become like a job, which it just from a gameplay perspective, like sucks ass. Level up materials, like I said, you have to do short repetitive missions like domains, or in some case, you do these just short missions. In Blue Archive, they let you even like skip the animations of actually doing the mission, which is just shows you how boring they are. You don't even have to bother doing it. You don't like level up your character by playing the game, like, by killing enemies, which I thought was always such a strange mechanic for an RPG. You do it by collecting level up materials, which is, again, super bizarre. And this just encourages you to spend money and log in daily. And then it kind of gives you like a cheap sense of accomplishment when like, oh, I earned this material and I leveled up this character. And, they make sounds and the bars go up, and it's very, very, kind of engineered dopamine releases. And then, of course, the other thing is, and probably the biggest thing is the gacha. If you look at the top right, we have this is like a gacha banner or for Blue Archive, which, has like a character, like, oh, there's like the live 2D, like, look at this beautiful, you can get this beautiful anime girl. You just gotta like spend like $200 gambling for her. And this is their main source of revenue, which ultimately leads to like kind of like preying on the people. Like, I don't know if I want to use the word preying, because I think most of them are adults, they know what's happening, but they really engineer it to make you want to spend. They go all out. They go all out in trying to get you to get these banners. And that's, fear of missing out on limited banners. The banners themselves are limited. So, the premium characters, the 3-star or the 5-star characters, depending on which game it is, are they're not just like a small percentage better, like a 5 or 10% increase versus the normal characters that are easier to get. They're on different levels. There was a graphic I was looking up comparing Ganyu to let's see, I don't know if I have it. Comparing Ganyu to I might have gotten rid of Ganyu to Amber, and like it's like 100% difference. 100% to 200% more damage. It's just absolutely insane. And of course, even the premium characters have power creep, and it's so funny, like listening to people talk about Zenless Zone Zero, where like, oh, the first, carrot 5-star character banner, they're talking like, is she future proof? Is she going to get power creeped out? Because they already know, they've already played enough of these games to know that she will be at some point. She's the best right now, but like a year down the line, there's going to be another character that kind of does her role and has her element better than she will. It just always happens, and it's so funny to see that they know what's going on. So it's like, I don't want to call it predatory because they're opting into it, but for me, I think one of the worst parts about it is it kind of betrays the core aspect of like the team building, character collecting kind of mechanic that's underneath it. Like these games are almost always about collecting characters and building teams, but fundamentally they decide like which characters are the best and like just straight up the best. So it's engineered to be that way. So there's no like expectation for these developers to like make each character unique, for each character to have like a special role in the game. And if it happens, it's by accident. So if they want, like, they'll sell you on a character, and then maybe 1 year later it's obsolete, or they'll sell you on this character and they're just, because of their powers and their stats, they'll make these all like kind of like vignettes and movies about it, like, oh, this character is amazing, she's wonderful, and then like her stats end up being useless. They're just designed to be fodder. And then of course there's always people that are like, oh, this is a trap for your resources. It just doesn't. It's almost like the relationship between the player and the developer is almost antagonistic. It's kind of bizarre. And then of course it forces them to make the combat very stat based. I noticed this playing Wuthering Waves, and and it so much of the damage ends up being on your gear and your stats. So execution becomes very, not, I wouldn't say obsolete, but very unimportant. So like how good you are at playing the game doesn't matter as much as whether or not you've collected the correct resources. So almost always the combat enemies become bullet sponges. And I can't really alt tab out of it, but we'll show that later. So it's like boring. Combat tends to be boring and easy for most of it, besides the highest level content, which they specifically make for you to have, all of their premium characters and weapons in order to pass. And then like they do this with like FPS checks, which is essentially like they'll have like a chamber with, certain enemies that have a shitload of life. And if you don't have if your characters don't have enough damage, you can play it as well as you want. But because of the timer and the lack of like skill expression, you're not going to outskill the floor and pass it. Like maybe if you play really well, like a complete noob with like tons of money will probably pass it just as well as, a total veteran with like 1,000 hours and less optimal gear. It's very much based on, do you have the right stuff to pass it? It's stat based and very, they have to control the character power because you have to make your premium characters better than your non-premium characters, or else people aren't going to want to buy it. They don't sell. There is a certain player base that will just collect waifus. They just want to collect characters and own them all. But there's also a staple base of players that will want the most meta characters, want the best characters. They want to buy the power in order to beat the content in the game. It's a flex for them. So they end up making enemies that just have insane amounts of life, and they're not fun to fight. And then the enemies tend to be very boring and generic, and they take a while to develop because most of the resources are going to developing characters that you need to sell. Like we got Shinano right here. Ultra rare. She used one of the first ultra rare ships. They used to have just like super rare, and then at some point, talking about power creep, they had to add an ultra rare rarity, which is even more rare in order to, I guess, sell more stuff. And then, I wanted to finish it up by talking about the good in gacha games, because I've played a lot of gacha games and I do enjoy them from time to time. But first I got to wet my whistle. So, I mean, if we look here, Skinner box mechanics, they're fun. I like dopamine. I don't know about you guys, but I do enjoy the occasional dopamine hit. Hey, Deborah, Nuke, how's it going, man? So they're pleasant to play and enjoyable. Like you get shining lights, flashing things like dwing, 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 bling, like bling, bling, wahoo. Like it's fun. It's fun to have that. Pachinko machines are pretty fun. We all enjoy gambling, I think, innately, and that's one of the reasons why, or like most of us. That's essentially why they end up doing so well and why they're so dangerous. So yeah, I like gambling. And of course, at least with gacha, like I'm never like, oh man, I can make my money back. Like I know I'm just literally throwing my money into a fucking well and it's never coming back. I might get, a cute waifu out of it, but at no point am I going to be richer for it. The art is impeccable. Like as we can see on the right-hand side, players get what they want. The games need to sell their characters to their core audience. That's how they make their money. So you're not going to get the character designs like Concord or gay dwarves like D&D, which completely rely on their established IP and name to sell to other players. The gacha space is extremely competitive, so they give their player base, and they know who their player base is because they tend to enjoy stuff like this. So they give you stuff like this. You're not going to see occasionally, China will force them to censor some of their art, which is unfortunate, but you still end up getting some really nice character designs. And then, of course, you also get lots of new stuff. It comes out almost on a monthly basis or even weekly in some cases. Like events tend to run like twice a month. So there's always something new content, new art. So it does tend to generate pretty quickly. And I enjoy that part of it, though it can actually kind of get overwhelming if you play it casually, where you have to constantly keep up with events. Character have good designs. Like I said, I usually like a lot of their character designs. I tend to be very nice to look at, very easy on the eyes. Music tends to be good. I've got a lot of kind of chill tones and music to it. Nice to listen to while you kind of like playing. Especially, I think Blue Archive does a really good job of having like just these like pleasant little tones going on in the background, kind of catchy. And they're overall fun and pleasant to play. If I look objectively at the game mechanics, I don't think they're good. But I think overall, the overall experience of playing is nice if you enjoy it for what it is. So it's like, the conclusion is like, it's a guilty pleasure. There's no good gacha game because I think the mechanics generally are antagonistic to enjoying the game. And they're kind of designed to like prey. I don't want to say prey, but they're to take advantage of like the way the human mind works. So you just enjoy them for what they are. They're not going to be a complex, deep, strategically, they're not going to like really push the limits of your mind or really just blow you out of the water with how good it is. But they're phone games. Like Azure Lane and Blue Archive are phone games. They're meant to be like played 15 minutes a day, or, while you're kind of waiting. So just don't get fooled into thinking that this is the height of video games. I'm not gonna. Of course, people can play whatever they want. I'm not going to say don't play these games. I play them. Nice, over 500 ships. And but I said, like, please, for people that play, if there's someone that's watching this that's only play gacha games, like, please play some other stuff too. Like, video games have so much more to offer than what gacha games will give you. As fun and enjoyable as they might be to play, please play some other games too. And that's the end of this great gacha presentation. This was wait, where's that video I had? What the heck? I thought I had a video prepared of, this is just sort of like Azure Lane, showing like the mechanics are complicated. No, let me prepare this here. I could have swore I did, but maybe I didn't. Oh, this is Wuthering Waves boss fight. Here we go. This is just like, you're looking at this like 8 damage, like 240 damage. You can see just how slowly this guy's life bar goes down while I'm fighting him. And of course, don't have like optimized gear for it. The absolute, top tier stuff. But you look at just how much these characters are bullet sponges. And this is the same with like any gacha game boss fight. You got to make yourself feel like it's, something. But a lot of it's just flashy stuff with numbers flying out and, light shows. It's very shallow. I guess would be the best word for it. But again, it's can be fun too. It could be fun just to like click buttons and enjoy the health bars going down. The other thing is, like, I'm doing barely any damage to him, but if you look, he is doing almost no damage to me too. And that's kind of the annoying fight. It's not like he's like so much better than I am. He's doing no damage either. It's like we're doing no damage to each other. So it just ends up being like this long, drawn out fight where I'm in zero danger of dying, and I just have to sort of outlast him in a battle of attrition. There's no timer either on the story mode, so I just need to whittle him down eventually. I think this ends up going about 8 minutes on this boss fight, which it feels long, but 10 minutes for a boss fight doesn't seem that long. But just the way the combat works, it feels like it. That Zenless Zone Zero coming out July 4th. I'll probably play it and talk about it. I noticed that when you talk shit about gacha games, some of their fans really get bad. And JRPGs can be good. It's just usually with like a normal JRPG, the mechanics and like, with like the strategy systems underneath are usually pretty complicated. But with a gacha game, these mechanics usually aren't. It's strictly about grinding. It's all designed to sort of get you to continue to play. So, and when you're building like a team for like a JRPG, you have the options are all available to you. It's not like, oh, I didn't play or I didn't spend enough during this month, so now I have to wait another year to have this, specific option open to me. Or I didn't, pull for this certain banner, so I don't have this certain weapon. You can get everything you need by playing the game. So it adds for a lot more complex strategy when you can have like all the pieces available to you to make it. And unfortunately with gacha games, they don't do that because they really can't. They need to sell the banners. So they specifically limit how and when you can get these characters. And then they'll make, content around having, these high level like premium characters. So because that's their whale, they're gonna make something for the whales to show off their characters and really give them value out of it, which I can't blame them. That's who makes them their money. That's it. And this was just it did take a long time to beat that boss. But this is just I like playing Monster Hunter now. That's another phone game with a ton of monetization in it. But it's not gacha. So, like, if you look at the comparison on the top, you have this is like the Kushaladora weapon, which is, you have to go to like a raid, essentially, if you want to do multiple within like 90 minutes, you have to pay extra money for. But at max level, this is only like 7% better. So that's the difference between like a gacha game and like a game that even like has a ton of monetization in it. Since they don't have to sell a character, they're perfectly fine with having the sort of premium weapon, the really hard to get weapon, is only 7% better. So you can clear any content you want with the regular like Lagania weapon that you can get that's available at any time. You can grind it at any time you want. And then even goes down once you have maxed out armor. So, if premium characters were like this, I would be fine with that. Like, if your 5-star character was only 7% better, that'd be perfectly all right. But that doesn't sell copies of the character. That doesn't sell the banner. The gacha players and I could be fine with it being like 8% better, because then they couldn't just, pass it through raw power. It require actual skill and knowledge of the game to be successful.